Good evening, I'm Onyando Ayata, also known as Blackman, and I'm glad to be here today with you to share with you the Black history, knowledge, and history of my people who have been forgotten on the face of history of the world and have been looked up upon by other races as savages. For so long, African history have been told by other races according to the way they wanted to fit themselves. This is why most Africans are miseducated and they lack self-knowledge or self-worth. We cannot talk about the world without talking about Africa, since we all know Africa is the cradle of mankind. But we as a people, we must ask ourselves, where is the worth and where is the glory that we once had? What happened to it and what is happening to it, and why can't we go back to where we were? When we go through our school books, we usually find our history starting with slavery. But we must ask ourselves as a people, are we a people whose history begins with slavery? Don't we have a history of ourselves? Have we not done anything worth talking about as Black people in this face of the world? Are we like children that all the time we have to look at the West for everything, even though African nation believes they are independent? How can we be independent as African nation while we also depend on the West for the clothes we wear, the relief food they give us, the education system we teach our children? Those are not characteristics of independence. And if you look closely, you will see that African people are working people. When I'm talking about African, I'm talking about Africans in Africa and abroad, because we are a nation and a people. And once you identify yourself with your nation, with your people, you will understand that no matter where you are an African by color. The color betrays you. If the Chinaman looks at you, you don't need to ask himself where you come from. If a British looks at you, you don't need to ask himself where you come from. They know you are an African. Our history have mostly been told by European scholars, but they have always told it from their point of view. And their point of view has never been to educate African person in the true history of himself. The aim of European scholars has always been to demoralize Africans and their culture, to keep us enslaved, to keep us thinking that white means right. If you look at the systematically living of African culture before the Europeans, you'll understand that Africans were more democratic people than the democracy being offered by the Europeans, which is usually used by African politicians to divide Africans. If Africans have been there and Africa is the cradle of all mankind, there have to be a storyline behind Africa and her people. We must ask ourselves, who built these pyramids? We have We have more than 150 pyramids in Sudan. We have pyramids in Egypt. We have pyramids in America. We have pyramids almost everywhere, even in China. Who are these people? And where did they come from? Mostly European scholars have always tried to remove Egypt from Africa, but from the last time I saw my map, Egypt was part and parcel of Africa, and it is up till today. They don't want us to look at Egypt, because when we look at Egypt, we'll start seeing the glory of Africa, what black people have done that nobody wants to compare themselves with, what Africans have done to humanity, to the rest of the world. They don't want you to understand that even the concept that went into the making of religions, both Islam and Christianity, were copied from Africans. I'm saying the concept because Africans did not practice religion. Africans practiced spirituality. And this spirituality is what both the Arab and the European took and went into the making of the major religions, the Abrahamic religion. When you look at Africa, before Europeans were here, you will understand that Africans were doing great things. And in order for us to understand ourselves as a people, where we are going, it's relevant for us to first take a step backwards and look at where we were before our oppressor took us out of history into slavery. Why is it important for us to start here? Because this is where we will understand where we were before being slaved, and what we were doing, and where we are now, and where we are heading to. We cannot have the oppressor telling the oppressed how the oppressed will liberate himself. I'm saying this because there's no European answer for African problem, or there's no Arabs answer for African problem. It's either we as Africans, we solve our problem ourselves, or we are going back to slavery. You can see the Chinese also here. Now, let's take a look at the ancient Africa. If Africa is the cradle of mankind, and religion says there was Adam and Eve, I want to believe that these Adam and Eve were a black man and a black woman. And if they were there, they had to have black names, African names. Why am I saying this? Because for so long, the making of religion has been enslaving us, and is still enslaving us through mental shackles. When the European came to enslave us in 14th century, I'm saying, I want you to get, this is not the first time we Africans were meeting with these Europeans. We had met with the Romans, we had interacted with the Greeks. Actually, the Greeks philosophers studied in Africa. Plato himself says he was in Africa for studies for 15 years. because at that point, Africa was the center of the world. As it is today, Africa is the center of the world because Africa, we have always had what the world doesn't have, but the world needed it. So, and as Africa, we don't know that. That's why Africa is always up for grab. Chinese are here, Indians are here, Europeans are here. Everyone is here fighting to grab Africa, while we Africans, we are fighting to go to the sky. We want to go to heaven, while other races want to divide our land. Now, long before Europeans were here, we lived in harmony with each other. I hear they say that Africans sold each other. But let me tell you, there's difference between slavery and servitude. Africans war soldiers who were captured, some of them ended up being leaders to the communities where they had been captured. We have stories in African stories where warriors were captured in war and taken to other land, but they ended up being powerful people there because they were considered as family. They would work for a period of time, but at the end they will be given freedom. They will have a decision to make, either to stay or to go back to their land. We have stories of people who went back. So we cannot compare how African did their things to the Holocaust of Africa. The Holocaust of Africa alone, European enslavement of Africans by European, which has been over 500 years, has killed more Africans than ever. Africans did not have jails because there were no criminals. There is a talk, they tell us that slaves were taken out of Africa. Slaves were never taken out of Africa. Doctors, architects, engineers, people important to the society, leaders, mothers, fathers, children, brothers, sisters, were taken into Africa and made into slaves. These people who did more harm to us than good were the same people we welcomed and helped. Africans were the first people to build a university in Spain, the University of Salamanca, which was built by black Moors when they conquered Spain in 711 AD. This period, Europe had gone into dark age. When the Africans went to Spain with General Tarak, who had 50,000 soldiers, black soldiers, who had horses. Some of them were wearing even gold. General Tarak was said to be a black man, a black man, who was riding a white horse with gold chain in his neck. Africans were not savage people at that point. They went to Spain and found that the European had forgotten what had been taught to the Romans by Africans and passed down to them. They had forgotten everything. Even Africans are the one who taught Europeans to take bath. Europeans didn't take shower. When the Africans found them, Europeans were dying of skin diseases. There was death everywhere because of their uncleanliness. And we can see these facts clearly because even in early 19th century, it's a black man who told white surgeon that they should wash their hands after doing surgery to one patient before attending to another patient. It was an African person. So, our history has been systematically placed that make us hate ourselves and embrace the European culture. In schools, we are not taught about who we are, what we have been doing, or what we did. Mostly what we get is European culture. This is why Africans are brainwashed. You see, information is very relevant. When Europeans colonized the world, they did not only colonize the people and the artifact they found with the people, they also colonized information that were relevant in order to oppress other people. Like, for example, how could Columbus discovered America while the natives were there? History sources said Columbus did not even step into America. Columbus reached into island of America known as San Salvador. History has been rewritten by Europeans for black people to embrace the people who oppressed them as the heroes while they're demeaning their people. You can see this by seeing that most great leaders who have been having black mind, people like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Dr. Oseguefo Kwame Nkrumah, the president of Ghana. These people, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere of Tanganyika, these people had the best interest at hand for black people. These people wanted a one Africa. But as it has always been said, there were house Negroes and field Negroes. We got sold out by some of our brothers. This ended up Africans not creating a one nation in the first African Union 1930. Because some of our leaders of our nation had already sold our people. You cannot fight your oppressor while you are going to bed with them. You will love your oppressor more than your people. After the hardship slavery which Africans were beaten and forced into forced labor was done, after Africans built America was done, the European wanted to control the people. When you want to control a people, you don't only want to enslave them for a period of time. You want to slave them forever. So you have to come with a strategy that will help you to control their mind. And this is where brainwashing comes into, and indoctrination. Because when you control the man thinking, you don't have to control his behavior. He will always do what you want him or her to do. And we can see it plainly. Africans have been taught that white is right. You find an African child with so much nonsense in their head. White Jesus, white Superman, white Spider-Man. You also find a grown person, African man, kneeling down to a white Jesus or a white mother. And I tell you, when your God doesn't look like you, you've become a spiritual slave. You lose all aspect of life. When you are mentally enslaved and spiritually enslaved, you remain a slave forever until you wake up yourself and understand yourself, who you are. Because if we are worshipping a white God, it means we are insulting the God who made us black, for him making us black. Every nation and a people have always had their belief. And I say this clearly, I don't need anybody to teach me religion because I'm a spiritual man. I practice African spirituality. And African spirituality, when studied better, is 10 times better than all religion combined. Because African spirituality teaches you to embrace humanity. African spirituality teaches you to be one with nature. But the white man is in war with nature. That's why the white man is war with black man. We don't need pastors to teach us the 10 commandments. While if you clearly read African history, you'll find that these 10 commandments were omission of purity, which were taught at the great school of Laxo in Africa, which were not actually 10, but were 42 laws. So everything that went into the making of religion and everything that is happening here, it has always been copied in Africa. Africa will and will always have, and is still having, something that people don't have and people will kill to have. We are a people who are rich in land, rich in minerals, but at the same time, we are the most poorest people. These are some of the things we have to look at. As Africans right now, we are at a crossroad. We don't have African answer from Europeans. It's either we create our own answer for our own problem, or we black people, we are heading back to slavery. When someone provides you with the clothes you wear, the information you have, the food you have, the money you use, you are subjected to this person, and this makes you a slave. Africans, we need to rise politically, because you cannot have resources. You cannot have resources and lack power. We must come together as a nation and look at our problems. We know there are people who are brainwashed, like Malcolm said. Sometimes an apple falls far from the trees and it rolls and it gets crushed and it loses its face. This fruit, this apple, you cannot associate it with the tree because it has lost everything. We do not accept that everyone, or expect that everyone will get awoken at this age of knowledge, but for the few black people who know, must teach. We as Africans, we are clever people, and we have a proverb that says, those who know must teach. At this age of superior brainwashing, we must know that everyone is supporting what will benefit them. Chinese, I don't blame Chinese for doing what they are doing. No. The China leaders have spotted the Chinese problem, and the Chinese leaders are ready and willing to do anything for their Chinese people. This is what is happening with the European, but it's not happening in Africa. Africa, we have so much leaders with less leadership. Most people who have ideas that can liberate us, sometimes we always end up killing them. About leadership and the enemy within in Africa, we'll talk it another time.